Hello and welcome back to the Body and Mind Health podcast. And today I'm going to be here discussing Oxford United and how it's been going. I've got a fellow podcaster guest, Jack, with me. Hi, Jack. How are you?
How you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, all good, all good. Um, so we're currently filming on the Sunday after the Burton game. Do you want to talk to me about how you felt that went? Um, yeah, tactics, and then I guess also who's to blame if there is anyone. Yeah, do you want to just talk me through what you thought of it?
Yeah, it was a difficult afternoon. It wasn't a very nice afternoon either. No, we struggled. We really, really did. There's a lot of things going wrong at the football club at the moment, and excuse me. I think yesterday was an example of that. I think massively in the result, the performance as well. I think all over the shot we were, in a really quite difficult place. I think there's a lot of conversation at the moment about the manager. There's a lot of conversation about his future. It hasn't been the only bad result we've had this season. Unfortunately, we have had back-to-back defeats, but we've had some poor results before that as well. And generally, this season hasn't been very good. And like you look at yesterday in particular, we're playing a side who are 23rd in the league. I think now 22nd after that win, and they conceded the most goals in the league. I think they've scored 54, conceded 54. Sorry, in total, conceded the most. They should be a side that we should be okay against, even though we're not to the level that we feel we should be. You still feel as though we should be. We should have that quality in the squad to do the job against Burton, and that's no disrespect to them. And in fact, yesterday they bullied us. It was men against
Yeah,
boys against a side that ultimately, like I say, we should be beaten. So, in terms of responsibility and in terms of who you say should be blamed for that, the players have to take massive responsibility. Of course, they do. They're the people that are in the power of changing the game. And it looked at the end of it really where they look like there's a lack of belief, really, a massive lack of confidence. And I think form does play a massive part in that. But of course, the manager, Carl Robinson, he has to take the most amount of responsibility because he is the manager, he is the leader of that football club, especially the playing side anyway. And at the moment for him, it's not going very well.
yeah. I think Sam Long summed it up perfectly in his post-match interview. I think you said it. It was men against boys. It was, and we were made to look the poor side. It was Burton who was supposedly, I think, second to bottom coming into this game, have just elevated to third, and now looking to maybe try and find some sort of survival. But it was looked to be almost flipped. It was almost like it should be the other way around. And yeah, it's just you don't know what to expect with Oxford at the moment, do you? You could get a great win against Ipswich, 2-1, looking like a good performance, things looking like it could be on the up. And then we go to Wycombe midweek, which we knew was going to be a hard game. Wycombe, like you said on your podcast, they're a very well drilled side. We knew it was going to be tough, but then we played into their hands, you found. We played the game the Wycombe way. Couldn't really get into the game the way Oxford wanted to play. And then
Definitely.
Burton yesterday, just we don't seem to be having that final third um, output. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think going forward it's been a massive downfall for us. I actually look at previous seasons. That's been something that we've been really good at.
Yeah,
Look at our XG, look at our goal score. We've been competing with, clubs up the EFL, but also at the football period in England. We've been competing with Manchester City, I think, last season when it comes to goal score. That's a massive problem, and that's something that is even more concerning. Really, you look at sort of where we've been struggling this season. That was something that we were sort of holding on to as a massiff success of previous years, and something that actually Carl Robinson, as a manager, and his philosophy and the way that he wants his side to play, ultimately, that's something that he's been very, very good at. And for Oxford as well, that's something that he has built a squad of. And if you can't do that this season, that's where the problem lies. I think defensively, we have been a little bit better, but ultimately, we still haven't been great. We've been better. But you look at a goal scored, you look at our numbers in the attacking area. I mean, yesterday, I don't know whether or not you watched the game. I imagine you saw enough of it to sort of see that we look clueless in the final third. We get into that position and we don't really know what to do with it. We don't know whether or not maybe it's the movement. I actually think everyone's talking about a striker. I think it's more than a striker. It lies deeper than that. It's a creativity problem. I think our midfield of Bate, Brannigan, and McGuane is good. I think it's hard working. I think it's full of energy. I think the work rate in that midfield three is absolutely fine. I think they're going to provide energy. And in a Carl Robinson system, that's perfect. But I look at those wide areas. Is Billy Bowden offering enough in terms of balls in the penalty area and chance creation? We've got players like Murphy, who isn't, who we see very rarely in that squad. That's another conversation for another time. Yannick as well. I know he did well against Ipswich, but really since then he's been quite quiet in the other two appearances that he has made. So you look at the other areas. I mean, we're recording this on Sunday, like I said, the day after the game. We've got until Tuesday where the transfer window does close.
yeah.
Yeah,
Tuesday,
we
close,
we
yeah.
we need more than a striker at the moment. From what we're getting, the general consensus is everyone's talking about a striker. Robinson said that we are looking for that striker. I don't know about you. I don't know whether you listened to his thoughts on the radio after. He doesn't seem totally confident that's going to happen. No. And again, if all the conversations around that position, I think the problems lie much, much deeper than that. And that's why I'm concerned about the second half of the season, because there are holes in that squad that needs to be filled. I don't know whether or not we've got the time and arguably the resources to fill those gaps.
Yeah, it's like you said, in those wide areas, we just haven't seemed to got someone to run at goal with pace and create a chance. Like you said, in the past years, we've been good at that, running forward and getting the ball in the back of the net. And I assume that's because players leaving, obviously moving on to bigger and better things or different things. But the new players haven't seemed to really, and the ones that have come up, they just haven't been the pacey Oxford that we're used to.
We're a lot of youngsters as well. Like you say, we're relying on young players to come off the bench. I think O'Donka maybe could be that. I think Goodrum maybe could be that. But these are players that ultimately are having to, if you look at the progression and the development of these players, they're so much further forward in the amount of game time and the responsibility that they're taking on compared to actually where the development should be as a young player. You know, these are normally players that should be could be out on loan. I think they probably are a little bit further than moving out on loan. I don't want to disrespect O'Donka and Goodrum because really they played a big part. We look at how old they are and the experience that they've got. I mean, these are two players that are playing in senior cup games, you know, for the under 23, under 21s, under 18s, and they're coming on to change the game after 60 minutes in a League One game. And again, that's a good thing for them personally. And I think in the future, that'll be a massive positive. But for us right now, it's a lot of responsibility and a lot of pressure on these young players to change a game in Sky Bet League One. There's conversations about O'Donka and Goodrum. They weren't even in the conversation at the start of the season because of how young they were, and because I think their development should be served. I think they do have a really exciting future down the line. But right now, it's a lot of responsibility and a lot of pressure, and that comes down to squad depth. And I think how we are really, really short in numbers in a lot of positions.
Yeah, it's like you said, they're often coming off the bench. O'Donka's made a few starts, but they just seem to be, they're so young, they're not making the impact they want to. I'm sure they will, like you said, in the future. The future's bright for them, but at the moment, they aren't seem to be having that impact. And going back to O'Donka, he's the man up front and he can score goals. We have seen it. He scored, I think, 2 senior goals already. But if we're not getting the ball to him, he's not going to get it in the back of the net, is he?
Yeah, again, like you said, that sort of is a full circle of conversation. It comes back to creativity. He comes off the bench. He has a couple of touches and around the penalty area yesterday. But again, clear-cut chances, it comes down to. It comes to clear-cut chances. And how many clear-cut chances did we have against Burton? We had a couple, and their goalkeeper made a really good save in the first half, a couple of pop shots here and there. If you look at Burton's goals, I mean, it was an absolute hit from outside the penalty area. It was a bit of a not hit and hope. I think he probably meant it, but it wasn't a if you look at XG and if a goal should be going in from that range and from that angle, it'd be fairly low, but fair play to be hit it really well. And I think it's gone down as an own goal. Quite harsh, I think, on both parties there. And then the other goal they scored as well. I mean, it was a ball in the penalty area, a little flick. Again, so simple, really, really simple. But we can't do either of those things. We can't have an opportunity from outside the penalty area. I think that comes down to confidence. And then we also can't get the ball in the penalty area because, again, I think it comes down to the fact that we don't have the players, but also the players we do have, I think are absolutely rock bottom when it comes to knowing what they want to do because of that almost confidence. Again, it's a massive, massive issue. And, you've got to look at Tuesday with that transfer window. But like I say, it can't all be resolved in 3 days. This is a problem that's been going on since the start of the season, really.
And we've already sort of touched on it briefly. Carl Robinson, his time may be calling for a few fans. There was chants yesterday at the away end. What are your opinions on it? Obviously, it's 3 days before the transfer window ends. Probably the most horrible time to want to sack your manager. But what are your opinions on it?
I think it probably is time. I think it probably is time to make a change. I think we're probably in that area now where we might be delaying the inevitable slightly. Personally, I haven't actually done a video on it, Alfie. It's a bit exclusive here on your channel. There's a couple of reasons for that, and that's because I think there was a lot of uncertainty yesterday whether or not it was going to happen after the game, what he was going to say, and then it doesn't look like it's going to happen today. It might happen this evening, and then potentially Monday is that sort of next. And then when you get to Monday, then look at our game on Wednesday. So you then look at it and you go sort of, are they just going to sit with it and see what happens? But like I say, I think you're looking at the inevitable now. I think it probably is time for a change. I think for Robinson's sake as well, deep down, he won't admit it, but I think he probably is thinking, he wouldn't have liked that yesterday. And I don't think anyone did. And some of the chants were sort of below the belt. I think, you've got to have respect for people. I think this is an industry, of course, where there is, it is a results-based business, but there also is a level of respect. And some of the things I've seen on social media that I think are quite disgusting. You also look at things that happen in the stadium, and if I was in the ground as well, I think we'd all be thinking, and all be probably saying how we feel. And I 100% get that. Definitely show that you're not in support of somebody that is running your football club. I have nothing against that, and I'm in that same boat. I'm well and truly in ultimate. I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to word it in the most polite way possible.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I think it's time for something that needs to change, but you've got to do it in the right way. You've got to do it in the respectful way, because he's been here 5 years. Let's just remember that.
And then what is the change that Oxford fans like us would hope? I don't know loads of names, but I've heard a few flying around on social media. Obviously, John Mousinho has gone to Portsmouth now, so that option that was there a few weeks ago isn't now. So
well, it won't be John Mousinho, unfortunately. I think he probably was that one that was potentially sort of lined up as that successor, and has sort of been developed really to then potentially take over for Robinson. Whether or not there's a lot of links a few months ago that Robinson can move on through his own course for another opportunity that comes up. That isn't going to happen now. I don't think many clubs are going to be looking at Robinson thinking, I think I'll take a punt on you, sir. I think that might be a little bit a little bit in his dreams potentially, or maybe he could look back on with slight regret. I don't know. We'll never know. But no, it won't be Mousinho, and I think we're all happy to sort of see him start the season, start his season, if you like, start his managerial career, shall I say? Well, and they lost yesterday to Peterborough, but apparently there was a little bit of controversy in that game, and I think they probably could have got more than a defeat. But the 2 games before that, I think he's already shown them the sort of maturity and how much of an articulate manager he is now. But also, as a young guy, he can definitely go and develop and get better and better, which is what Pompey and they want to do. But like you say, from an Oxford point of view now, that is a name that is firmly taken out of the hat, and you have to look at other options. To be honest with you, I can't really give you any names. I think Michael Appleton is I think will always be the favourite. I think he's somebody that will always be named. He's out of a job after losing being sacked by Blackpool. Yeah. So you've got to look at that option, and I think we always will because of his previous time at the football club. Do I think that's the best of moves? So I don't know. No one knows. No one knows whether or not either we're talking like he's been sacked. Ultimately, if they keep him, keep him till Barnsley, then he wins that game like he did against Ipswich, and everyone wrote us off in that one. He's probably going to be here for another couple of months. I think he is almost sort of on that line of unsackable. And where does it end? Which is where I say, I think unfortunately you are delaying the inevitable, really, because we do need something to sort of freshen up that squad now. It feels a little bit like the voice has been heard over and over again, and it's time for that sort of respectful change in guard. But it hasn't happened yet. So until that does happen, we can sort of look and potentially look at some rumours, but it won't be solid until sort of some big decisions are made and the board are going to be forced to act in some way, transfer-wise, but also maybe the manager.
Yeah, it feels like you said, it's been delaying the inevitable for quite a while. In my personal opinion, there was a rock bottom in about October, November, and then I think we won at Bolton. That crash sort of got papered over. But that was sort of the time that I personally thought, if there was to be a managerial change and the season was still going to be a possibility of a success, that was the time. I think now it's sort of, we have to see what the rest of the season holds and then go again next season. What do you think? So
question to you, would you say that they make the decision now, or do you leave it to the end of the season, maybe go with an interim role? Where do you sort of sit with that? Because it won't, like you say, to sack a manager, the grass isn't always greener. You've got to have somebody that can come in and do that role in the short term. Are you looking at short-term appointments until the end of the season, or do you look at sort of longer-term appointments if they're available, obviously?
I think it's so awkward because we're literally right at the end of January, and Robinson has been, and they have been, because he has said, looking for a striker or looking for someone to change that creative output up front. But it is difficult, and he said it is difficult. They want to pay the right money, but also get the right person. And I feel like if we were to sack him today, we definitely wouldn't get that striker, because I'm not sure. Is he still the head of almost everything at the club? Is he? Yeah,
so he's they've slightly changed a couple of roles since the takeover. He's still heavily involved with recruitment. Obviously, he's head coach as well. Yeah. We haven't got a director of football, which is again something that a lot of people are quite frustrated about or concerned about, especially when you look at a transfer window like this one, and arguably the summer, which didn't go very well either. No. There always will be question marks on that. But we have got a head of recruitment. We have got people in a recruitment department, but we haven't got that sole name, that director of football. But like I said, we've got a couple of people, obviously the scouting department, and again, like I said, the recruitment team. But I mean, I had a recruitment. Mark Thomas is looking to go to Derby in the summer as well. That looks like it's going to happen.
Okay.
So you're now looking at somebody that potentially won't be here for the summer. There's a lot of senior figures leaving at that football club. Thomas included, leaving in the summer. Messina, like you've already mentioned, is gone.
Yeah.
There's been quite a few names that have sort of walked out in the last sort of 12 months or so, or will in the next 6 months. So you actually look at an 18-month block there of quite a few people leaving the football club. And again, in those 18 months of some people leaving, will Coramson fit into that list of names? I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, we'll see what happens. The problem I have is the rumours are so quiet. Yeah, they're so quiet. I don't. There's no one linked, and there's no. You don't. It's not like I think Connor Wickham was a name that was mentioned quite early on in the window after his release from Forest Green Rovers. But you would have liked to have thought on the Sunday, what were you recording this on at 1 o'clock on a Sunday? The window closes on Tuesday. Some names have got to come out. Connor Wickham hasn't been mentioned since he got released by Forest Green Rovers. Bond was mentioned after he left QPR. He's now gone to Charlton. So again, that was pretty much dead and buried with it. Yeah, exactly. That was dead and buried within about a week. So this striker that we're chasing, you keep going on about the right player, but that right player hasn't actually been named yet. And again, rumors are rumors; they won't all be true. But can we have some names? Because there's no clear path we have. And if there is a striker that we go, wow, then it's been a really well kept secret. But I think we've got to the point now in the window where I honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I don't think there was a real clear plan. And if there was, I think it went out the window very, very early on in the window.
Yeah, well, it feels like this window's flown by. Shall we take a look back at the last window, the summer one? Obviously, some of the transfers haven't gone to plan, but some of them have made an impact, I guess. But also, one thing you've obviously got to look at, I had a look yesterday, there's quite a few loans in there, and players I actually forgot that were on loan and may well go up the pyramid or down the pyramid or back to parent clubs at the end of the season, and they have made a big impact on the club. So one that stands out to me, you said the midfield, Lewis Bate. I totally forgot he was on loan. I thought we had him permanently.
Yeah, he's on loan from Leeds United, isn't he? Yeah, no, he's a good player. He's a good player. He's energetic. You can tell actually he's a Leeds United player. You look at who's in charge there. We actually was in charge, Mark Bielsa before Jesse March. So these are two coaches at Leeds United that play very, very high intensity football and require their midfielders and actually just players in general to have a really, really good work rate. And you can see actually Lewis Bate, he runs for days. He's got a stomach that can run and run and run. You look like he won't blow out. So that's really, really good. Like you say, he has been one of the, realistically, if we're being honest, probably one of the few successes we did have in the window. Yeah. I mentioned others. Yannick, again, we can't really judge that. He's been injured pretty much the entire time he's been here, and he's made a couple of sort of good moments in there. He's had a couple of moments here and there. That goal against Ipswich obviously is his standout so far, but other than that, hasn't really had the opportunity, but also hasn't really made an impact in those other games. Josh Murphy, I mean, that is where is Josh Murphy? I mean, that is obviously a big problem. I think he's injured a lot of the time. There's a couple of rumours about sort of his situation, but again, I think it's more than football. I think there are probably a couple of things there that aren't quite right for whatever reason, which is a shame because I think he is a good player, or has been a good player in the past. I'm yet to see it in an Oxford shirt quite yet. Maybe we'll see it. Who knows? I'm trying to look at the other lads as well. We signed a couple more wingers as well, didn't we? And obviously we centre back Stuart Finley. I mean, that's been a disaster, to be quite frank with you. I mean, in the fact that he looked okay and then just got progressively worse and worse, and then now looks like he's going to leave.
The partnership looked like it was going to get better, and then Sam Long's almost pushed him out of the team, hasn't he?
And now we're looking to sign him within 6 months of signing him, a player that we apparently were chasing for multiple seasons. We apparently spent a decent amount of money on Stuart Finley. We're now going to sign him after 6 months. I mean, that is some of the most embarrassing recruitment that I've seen in a long, long time regarding Oxford United. To sell a player after 6 months that you've publicly been chasing for about 3 seasons doesn't look very good, does it? So that isn't ideal. Fleming came in already in this window. Again, look, these are players that so far, unfortunately, are being played in a squad that aren't getting results, and they are part of that, and they have to take much responsibility with all the other players. But generally, it looks like I said this at the end of the summer window. It was a little bit all over the shop. It was all very, very late, and it sort of screamed of poor planning and a lot of things going wrong. And they were sort of tried to. Jody Jones, another one. I mean, look at it.
I was going to say Jody Jones. That's got to be one of the worst signings you can see
Again,
just sold him
screams of desperation, doesn't it? It's sort of like, we needed a winger. We'll get Jody Jones. Never really wanted him, but we'll bring him in because he's a free transfer. We had him on trial and then never play him. And that just comes down to poor planning and an element of not really knowing exactly where we wanted and who we wanted the players to come from and to play in terms of position as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. I think I'm not surprised because the window was so poor, and this window hasn't been much better either.
I'd say this window's been worse. I know the January ones normally tend to be a bit quieter, but at least in the summer we signed Anderson in the summer. He's made at least some sort of impact. I know he
has been good.
Yeah, he's been probably one of our best signings along with Lewis Bay. And I'm quite a big fan of, I know he's been injured for a little while, but Kyle Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many names that we all forget now because they've sort of been injured and they come back. You forget whether or not whereabouts they came in and how long. How many times they've played. I mean, Carl Joseph, like you say, is a really good one that I didn't mention a minute ago. Again, he looks like he started off, I was a little bit concerned about him. He looked a little bit raw, and actually he's got better and better. Actually, he's been a really good player that we've developed, and it now looks like he could be quite good. Anderson, you mentioned there as well. I'll describe him as the Maverick. He's a little bit all over the shop. He can get exposed like he did against Wickham, unfortunately. But on another game, he can sort of take players on from right back like he's a winger, which like I say, can be a little bit concerning at times, and can work out in a negative way, and can definitely cause you problems in transition on the counter attack when he's not quite where he's meant to be. But he still is somebody that sort of takes you off your seat a little bit and gets you quite excited, which is something that really we haven't seen enough of this season at all. So yeah, there's names there that have made an impact, but generally I look at positions that we needed and exactly. The timing as well was really, they were all so late on. And again, January, we signed a left back, which I think was potentially a position, but we're only replacing Steve Seddon. I mean, and he's gone out on loan anyway. So we haven't really upgraded that position massively in terms of depth. We've just one in, one out. And you look at the positions where we certainly need to strengthen and we need depth in this window. I mean, whatever happens now, it's late, isn't it? It's the last week, not even that. We're in the last week of in the window, the last couple of days, like you said there as well. So whatever happens, once again, it's the same old story. We've left it really, really late.
Yeah, and like you said, we signed, I think, 2 people in this window, Fleming and then a youngster. But then
he's a centre back to sign. He's from the island, isn't he? So he's from Northern Ireland. Is it? I don't want to butcher his name, but he's injured at the moment, I think.
But didn't he get injured in the senior cup game against Oxford City? Yeah,
he got injured in the senior cup or county cup, whatever it's called. So he won't be out. He'll be out for a couple of weeks. And in our recruitment department, that'll probably be a couple of months as well. So we'll see what happens there. He might be the Stuart Finley replacement if he goes out. It looks like that's quite likely now. But even still, we don't know what he's like. We haven't seen him before. He's still a very, very young player, and one that really deep down wasn't meant to come in to play playing regular football and replace Stuart Finley. That was somebody that we're looking to develop potentially for next season, similar to what we did with Rob Atkinson, who came in a January window and then sort of used the period from January to the end of the season to sort of bed in, settle, and then push on for next season. But we're now looking to bring young players in to pretty much be a regular part of the first team, because once again we're short in numbers and we're short in depth.
Another question I was going to ask you was, how do you think Oxford, obviously we sit, I think 14th now after that loss yesterday, compared to other teams in this league? There's so many big teams in this league who want to fight to get out. Why do Oxford not compete in that top 6, top 10, if anything, region? Is that why are other clubs better run than Oxford? Or
well, I mean, a big one is because they've got more money. I mean, that is obviously a big factor.
But then we've had the takeover as well. So in the next couple of transfer windows, we can't use that excuse, because I think they are getting to get more money pumped into the club. Am I wrong?
We have had that takeover, but the problem we have is we don't actually know what that takeover consists of. We don't actually know how much that consortium have actually got to spend on the football club. I think a lot of focus, quite rightly, is going on the stadium move and the potential stadium move in that in that project that we're sort of a big part of right now, which again for the future of the club is massive. But also, I feel like although that's really, really important, we've got to have a football club that's competing to play in that stadium. And at the moment, the stadium progressions like this, which is fantastic, but the football club is sort of slowly on the field go like this. And at the moment, if it continues on this trend, you're going to have a very, very different stadium compared to the sort of the playing squad that potentially should be sort of competing in that ground. So we've got to make sure that obviously we get behind this exciting move off the field, but make sure we're staying competitive on it. And at the moment, we're sort of drift into mediocrity. And if you're not careful, you start getting used to that and the expectation stays like that, you're going to get lower and lower and lower, and things are going to get quite nasty. So in answer to your question, financially, that needs to happen. It doesn't look like it's going to happen in this window, does it? I mean, we signed a loan player, and it doesn't seem to be a big money move happening around the corner very soon either. I think Fleetwood have just signed Jack Marriott for £250,000. Again, you look at teams that are he's a striker, so there we go.
Yeah.
You're looking at these clubs doing business. Other clubs can do it. You know, Ipswich, of course, they've got a much bigger transfer budget, but they're attracting players. They're bringing players in. And then that's a bad example, really, because there is a big difference in size, stature, and, of course, financial strength. But you're looking at sides in and around us as well. Let's look at, I mean, I'll try and give you an example. I mean, Portsmouth, really, again, size of club, of course, is different, but the finances should be apparently not hugely different. They're bringing players in, loan players. And again, we're not asking this, we're not asking these owners to spend, millions of pounds. We just need we need to help us on our way and financially back Robinson, whether that is in the loan market or it is picking up players where we have got to pay a fee, whatever that fee may be. At the moment, I mean, we're acting like a football club that has absolutely nothing in the bank. And that, again, is a big problem. And that is reflecting on the football pitch as well.
Yeah, like we've talked now about transfers, Robinson, the game. Now, what's sort of for the rest of the season in your eyes? And then looking for next season, do you think Oxford should still be looking up, or will we slowly fall away, do you think, and have to start worrying about the other end of the table?
I think the summer's massive. I think the summer is huge. I actually think the next couple of days is really important when it comes to potentially starting to build a squad for next season, if they aren't loan players, or maybe we do start bringing in some permanent players that can sort of start shaping this squad, because I think that squad now is coming to essentially a cycle that had its really good moments. But I look at players in that squad now that it probably is time to move on. Players that I think have been very, very good in the last couple of years and have respected and have done very, very well and have been respected by the fans, but also done very, very well for their manager, Carl Robinson. But now you're looking at that cycle where probably it's time to sort of let those players move on gradually and then allow these new players, whether that is the young lads, but also a new French bunch of players coming into the club to sort of take over from those more senior players that should be potentially moving away and ending their career, whether that's entirely or another football club. So the summer could be a really big transition period. Is Carl Robinson going to be in charge of that transition period? Who knows? Like I said, the next couple of days could be really important and could be quite interesting in that. But yeah, you wonder. I think let's see what happens at the end of this window. Let's see what happens if Robinson is in charge for the second half of the season. I think it could be quite a substantial summer with a lot of players coming in and a lot of players probably going out as well. Well, that's what needs to happen. Whether or not that's the idea of the people inside the football club, I don't know. But yeah, a lot of confusion, a lot of turmoil at the moment, and a lot of question marks. And until those questions are answered, it's really difficult to sort of answer that question, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, and on a game-to-game basis, like I said earlier, you don't know what type of Oxford you're going to get. We could play the sort of football we play against Ipswich. I know we didn't win it, but Sheffield Wednesday, we played quite good football.
Should have won that game.
Yeah, should have Sheffield Wednesday. Should have won that game. The Bolton away in October, Portsmouth. We play the big sides and we seem to play more intently, but then we do slack against the teams like yesterday, Burton. Then we've lost to Lincoln, drawn to Morecambe, drawn to
Forest Green.
So all of those that we sort of seem to feel like we drop points on, and just that doesn't help us climb the table.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's just a sign of mediocrity, really. It's a sign of at the moment. I don't like using the word, but it's sort of a lack of ambition, really, isn't it? It doesn't seem very ambitious, and the lack of backing, the lack of support in the transfer window as well, which was always hyped up to be quite an important one. Nothing's really happened in that window either. It just sort of comes back to missed opportunities is something that I say quite a lot. And I think it is missed opportunities, a lack of ambition, unfortunately. And it's just this is, again, not very analytical, but it is quite a boring cycle that we're going around at the moment, which is sort of yesterday, Wickham, horrendous. And then Barnsley on Wednesday. It wouldn't surprise me, and people will probably laugh at me, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get a result against Barnsley. And then that cycle just continues, doesn't it? It's that cycle of just of getting quite disappointed and being heavily frustrated with poor results. And then at Barnsley, we'll probably get a reaction. And after that, we've got Shrewsbury, who are in really good form.
Yeah.
And they might go, they might go and beat us. And then we're back in the same position again. It's that ongoing cycle of just boredom, frustration. And where does it end? That's what I say. You are almost just I say it comes back, like we said, right at the start of this conversation, you are delaying the inevitable, I feel, right now. And it's really difficult now for Robinson to get the fans back on side. I mean, I don't know how you can do it. I don't know how, for the position that he's in right now, he's going to get those fans to turn around and go, actually, we were wrong. We now completely support you. I think it's just too far gone for me right now. I think it's too far gone.
That's how I feel as well. Yeah, like you said, we had a bad start to the season, but that bad start seems to have carried on almost all the way into the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's not just a bad start now, it's a bad first half of the season. It's a bad first 26 games. So
yeah, but it felt like after the first, I don't know, 6 or 7 games, everyone kept saying, "Oh, it was a bad start. We'll turn it around." Oxford always push on. But do you see that happening this season? Oxford tend to always have a great second half of the season. Do you see that somehow? I'm not saying we're going to shoot up the table and get promotion, but do you see a turnaround, maybe a few top 10 or something?
it's hard because you've got to look at, all you can do is look at that short term, and that's dangerous, but also something that has to be taken into consideration. In the short term, I mean, if we play anything like we did against Burton in some of the games we've got coming up, and we've still got to play Sheffield Wednesday at home, we've still got to play Plymouth at home, we've still got to play Bolton at home, we've still got to play Barnsley home and away. I mean, it's just, these are some absolutely some of the most difficult fixtures Oxford will ever have to face in League One, I think, and that's just based on previous years and this season. We look at how good those sides are and how far away we are. Normally, we're sort of competing in and around those teams. Pompey, we've got to play at home as well. These are all sort of teams that you sort of expect normally we're sort of in and around and fighting with. The gap is much bigger now compared to it was in previous seasons. And like you say, even in those campaigns where we have had to chase, but also do really well in terms of a long run of results that have been really, really good for us, like 9-game winning run a couple of seasons ago. Yeah. We were still sort of in and around that area. We're now 7-8 points away from it. We've still got some huge opposition, like I said, to still face. And also the confidence and the whole feeling around the club is much, much lower. I mean, I've never sort of seen the fan base in such toxicity like I've ever seen it before. And I mean that. I've never seen social media as quite, it is toxic. It's not a very nice place to be around. You type Oxford United into Twitter right now, you know, it's a pretty dismal place. You put Oxford United in Google as well, you're getting all these journalists and all these stories and all these match reports of games we don't want to be reminded of. And you sort of look at the whole club just in general, it's in a very, very different place than it was going into a long run. So again, answering your question, I'm not entirely sure. And also as well, something that has to be taken into consideration, we signed Marcus Brown in the January of last season. We signed players that actually, although it was quite late, we did sign players and we did have a bit of a bounce. I remember that before that on-game run, I think it's the same season, we signed Elliot Lee, we signed Brandon Barker, we signed a lot of these players that actually, in the end, were a massive, massive part of that run. Shadipo was part of that campaign as well. These are all players that gave us a little bit of bounce, gave us a little bit of a boost. And now, because it's so flat, I don't know where you're going to get that sort of springboard, because at the moment it seems, like I say, so flat and so dead. Ultimately, I don't know how you could sort of really lift and bounce up the table. Maybe I hope they prove me wrong. I'm a massive supporter of Oxford United, as you know, and so are you as well. I hope with all of my life that we can turn it around. But you've got to look at the situation right now. It doesn't look great.
No, that's the whole thing with Oxford fans, isn't it? It's just they don't know. You don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of hours, couple of days, the next match, and the rest of the season.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think we'll probably wrap up there. That's everything I've wanted to talk about. We've talked about the transfers, the Burton game, looking forward, and then Carl Robinson's future. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll be back soon talking about other sports and interviewing other sports stars about their training and how it affects their mental and physical health. But thanks, Jack, for coming on. It's been a nice episode.
No worries, mate. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
And I'll put your channel in the description, but I'm sure everyone will probably already be subscribed. And keep doing what you're doing, mate. I love your content.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon.
Cheers. Take care, guys.